welcome. This is AFCON Today, live on Joy Prime, as well as on Joy 99.7 FM. My name is Fentu, Tahir Fentu. Today on the show, we are looking back at two quarterfinal matches yesterday at the Africa Cup of Nations. And once again, the shocks at this AFCON just never stop coming. And this time around, it's defending champions Senegal, who were shocked. And I say shocked because they played the best football in the group stages, the only team to qualify with 9 points out of 9. They came up against a CoteD'voire team that barely qualified. In fact, they had one win, lost 2 matches, and had a goal difference of -3. So they scraped through, only to kick the defending champions out. And AFCON keeps winning, continuing its tradition of the defending champions never making it past the round of 16. So we'll look back on that fantastic night in Abidjan. We'll connect you live to Abidjan and tell you about how the party unfolded last night after that final whistle, of course. Also, in this edition of AFCON Today, we'll talk AFCON budgets, because yesterday, some big news. It became evident how much we actually budgeted for this AFCON tournament, once again raising the questions about the judicious use of our resources when it comes to investing and pumping money into the Black Stars of Ghana. There's that, plus a look ahead to today's games, where Morocco and South Africa, all of them looking for tickets into the quarterfinals. So we'll preview all of today's matches as well here on the show. It's live and interactive, sponsored, of course, by MTN. MTN everywhere you go. We will take a very short break. When we come back, I will introduce my guest, and then we can start talking some AFCON. All right, welcome back. This is AFCON Today. If you're listening to us on 99.7 Joy FM, welcome to the show. We're looking back on all of the action from the Africa Cup of Nations round of 16 matches yesterday, where Cape Verde broke Mauritanian hearts in that last-minute gasp winner, or last gasp winner, if you like. Of course, from Mendes, penalty committed by the goalkeeper, and yesterday as well, another penalty committed by Edouard Mendy was what allowed CoteD'voire to get back into the game and then eventually seen it out in a penalty shootout. So we'll look back at yesterday's round of 16 matches and look ahead to today's games as well. But first, yesterday news broke, of course, from the Member of Parliament for North Tongue. He put out a post on social media with an accompanying document where he claimed that, of course, Ghana's AFCON budget was $8.5 million US dollars. Now, us here at Joy Sports, we had tried everything before the tournament to have the Ministry of Youth and Sports disclose how much they were budgeting or intending to spend on this tournament. We were never told that. In fact, we were told that the budget was an ongoing process that would be made clear to us after the tournament. A week after the competition, we've kept asking, how much did you actually spend? Until now, we do not have that information. However, thanks to Honorable Kujata Blakwa, we do know how much they intended to spend. We still don't know how much they actually spent. Now, the budget issue is always a very important issue of conversation, because at the sports ministry, there are so many other important expenditure in other areas of the sport that are critical and are not being given the necessary support, for example. And then you also look at comparative figures, and you realize that every time you have a budget of a certain amount, and then you compare it to what other countries are budgeting for the same competition, you start to ask yourself, are we playing a different competition, or what exactly are we doing, or how exactly are we spending all this money? And that's the letter. May not necessarily be clear to you. Wasn't clear when he posted it, but the figure is there. And Victor Achutamaklu is here with me. Together, we will try and put some perspective on this. Achu, listen, an explainer, first of all, about what exactly is here. Now, before you come in, notice that government or Ghana got $7.9 million US from our participation at the 2022 FIFA World Cup. When that money arrived, that money was given to the government and then the sports ministry, of course. So the money came to GFA directly, then they would transfer that money to the government of Ghana, or they would inform, in fact, they wrote to the Ministry of Youth and Sports, they informed them that they had received $7.9 million US from our participation at the 2022 FIFA World Cup. Then the sports ministry says, no problem, thank you very much. Now, what I would have you do is keep 2.5 million of that money and use it to build a Qatar 2022 legacy project. Because in the past, we've gone to the World Cup and we've taken all the World Cup proceeds and we've not used any of it to build any legacy project to show for our participation at the World Cup. So keep 2.5 million. The remainder of that money, 5.4 million, transfer it to the consolidated fund, which is controlled, of course, by the Ministry of Finance. Okay, and the money arrived in June of last year, June of 2023. Okay, and that money, of course, was further transferred to the Ministry of Finance, 5.4 million. Now, 6 months later, we went back to the Finance Ministry and asked them for $8.5 million US to go and use it to play an AFCON. That is some 600,000 more than what we got from the FIFA World Cup only 6 months prior. Okay, and we said that we had budgeted some 8 million, and this letter that you see was requesting for the release of 5 million. So we have budgeted 8.5 million. But this letter you see, signed by the Chief Director of the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Mr. William Carty, he requested to the Ministry of Finance for the release of $5 million. Now remember that they had transferred 5.4 million to them from the World Cup money into the consolidated fund. Then 6 months later, they've gone to us for 8.5 million in total, but they had requested for the release of 5 million immediately. And then for the rest of the competition, maybe they will see how far and how much more they will come back to request for. So then again, we're back to the issues of judicious use of resources, especially when it comes to the national team. Because currently, we are facing a big race against time to finish facilities for the Africa Games. I was there over the weekend, and facilities that would be used in March. And March, I beg your pardon, it's only 30, what? It's only about what? How many days away? Exactly 30 days away. Today's the 30th. Yeah. Okay, so March is 30 days away. The games are starting
over 30 days.
On March 8th, so 38 days away. No single facility has been completed and handed over yet. The athletes that we are preparing for the games say they need $50,000 for preparation. The ministry has told them they don't have $50,000. But they have this amount of money. They go and waste on that embarrassing exit or campaign or fiasco at the AFCON, where we took over 2,000 fans and paid each of them $400 as
honorarium.
I mean, seriously.
So when fan says we are wasting money on the AFCON, do not misconstrue his words. He's not saying that investing in the Black Stars is wastage, no. If you mention it, if you look at it in terms relative to our needs, in terms relative to the resources that we have, it does not make sense. If you fell from Pluto or Mars, right, and you just go wind of how Ghana spends on its national team, the Black Stars, the facilities, the luxury access, or the luxurious treatments that we give to the Black Stars, in your mind, and I'm saying that if you fell from Mars or Pluto, without any consciousness of Ghana's recent history as far as performances in major tournaments are concerned, without any knowledge of the resources the country has, without any knowledge of the resources the country sets aside as its sports budgets annually.
Yeah.
And someone told you that this country is going to spend this much on one tournament. The conclusion you will draw is that this is a very rich country. That we are going to spend $5.4 million US, or we've budgeted 8.5 on one tournament. The impression that creates for the average person is that they have enough cash to blow. So they can, so this is essentially will be disposable income to them, right? Because they then have generated revenue for their capital projects, for executing of policies, development, infrastructure.
Health infrastructure.
So they would have all of these boxes checked. Unfortunately, we don't. Now, I'll try to explain why we see what is happening, right? In the past, and today, thanks to Drew Safo's commentary, I had to do a bit of digging and check Ghana's previous budgets and the commentary surrounding those. When Marama Ayariga returned from AFCON 2015 and he went to Parliament and said, we budgeted $4.7 million US, he went to Parliament just like now because there had been a backlash from Ghanaians after a fruitless campaign to get the ministry and government and the Ghana Football Association to publicly put a name to how much the country was going to commit to the tournament.
In fact, not to cut you, Mahama Ayariga infamously told the journalist to ask better questions when he asked him about the budget. He said, let's discuss more serious issues and forget about this issue of budget.
Now, a year before that, Ibrahim Sanidara, then communications director at the Ghana Football Association, had told Gary L. Smith and Dan Kweku Yeboah that the issue of the Black Stars budget was a state secret.
Was this the infamous Sunday night show?
On GTV. When Ghana returned from the AFCON in 2015 and Mahama Ayariga went to Parliament, he said, we spent $4.7 million US, or that's how much we budgeted.
And this was a year we made the final.
We made the final. So after that defeat to Ivory Coast, he said, this is how much we spent in the tournament. The opposition then, the minority caucus then, who now are the majority, rejected his account of Ghana's expenditure because his account to Parliament did not include the itemized breakdown of the expenditure.
That's right.
So he just went to Parliament and said, we spent this amount at the tournament. And then they said they spent, I think, $3.6 million US on bonuses and honorarium for playing staff, for technical team, management committee members, and other support staff providers for the national team. The minister did not put a name to the composition of these or this support staff providers. He did not name whether or not it was the management committee that we knew it as it were, or, as you know, the protocol officer provides services to the national team in this tournament. Whether they got part of this money, he didn't. If you move on to all other tournaments that we have participated in, the themes of commonality will be officials telling Ghanaians that the issue of budgets is a state secret, right?
When it's convenient.
When it's so we have had an incident of the GFA comms director saying that. We have had an incident of the GFA president saying that. We've had the sports minister saying that to Parliament. However, this continues because it is not just the attitude in sports administration. Yesterday, we saw the GRA boss before the Public Accounts Committee of Parliament. He dared to suggest that the question of his age was a private matter. A public official, whose, by the way, tenure of office is time limited.
He does tied to his age, really.
He does not occupy that office in perpetuity. But somehow, it makes sense to him. It makes sense to the Deputy Finance Minister to tell the Public Accounts Committee. So you're beginning to see a consistency.
So we have a habit of making very convenient arguments when it benefits us.
No, you're polishing it. We have a habit of setting aside world-accepted standards of accountability in public service. That's just what it is. And
because to be fair, even as it stands now, the former sports minister, the one that Mustafa Yusuf replaced, Isaac Asiyama, went to AFCON 2019.
Again,
came back.
He did not give the itemized breakdown.
Didn't give a breakdown.
Yes.
Parliament requested for it. He said he would give the breakdown. And he never did.
Yes.
Till he left power as sports minister. And now he's even leaving power as an MP.
As an MP. So there is that. And then there is how much we commit to sports development in this country. Look, if journalists are worried about how much we are sinking into football, it is not because we don't like the Black Stars.
Not just football. Black Stars.
Yes.
Okay, because I think what we do have now is that we have a ministry named Ministry of Youth and Sports.
But in
the Ministry
practice,
of Youth and Sports has neglected the youth part, and they're doing the sports. In the sports, they've neglected everything else, are doing only football. And in the football, they've neglected everything else and doing just Black Stars.
So thank you. So when people question the wisdom, and excuse me if this sounds too harsh, but when people question the import of committing that much into the Black Stars, we do this born out of the appreciation that the 80% of the country's allocated budget for sports goes into paying compensations and salaries. What we commit to funding the Black Stars comes from the consolidated fund.
It does.
So there is no plan for revenue generation. There is no plan for sports development because the two go hand in hand. If you have a plan or if you have a policy, a document that tells you that this is what I want to do for sports. So in this year, this is what we want to do. We want to ensure that we're going back to the area where we're strengthening our college sports. So we're introducing these competitions. These competitions are going to be officiated by world accredited officials. And so let's train them. This is how much it is going to cost to train them. Now let's go into the schools. How many of the tutors there are teaching the kids with the modern principles and not obsolete ideas? This is how much it will take to do an audit, right, of the instructors at the district level. And after doing that audit, you come to the point where you now look at your resources, how much it will cost you to raise the level of the people you are paying to impart this knowledge. So you have that document in terms of what you want to do.
To guide you.
To guide you.
Yeah.
And we're talking about just one discipline of football. Last year, the Ghana Athletics Association trained a lot of their officials. When they finished, they sent them out to their various federations. That is one federation. If you go to them and they tell you how much it costs them to do that, it will blow your mind. They will do this. And then when it's time for them to prepare a national team for tournaments, the state now says, we don't have $50,000. So it is a big problem because, one, we don't have money, we don't have a plan, but when the government shows a certain willingness to now actually commit funds into sports, out of sheer myopia and something else that I cannot explain because I don't want to call people greed and all of that, yeah. But we then decide that it is convenient to sink that much money into the Black Stars. Because
it's a conundrum I have never understood. You know, unless there is some kind of mischievous intent behind the amount of money we pump into the Black Stars, I don't see where it makes a lot of sense.
There's an aspect that we can explain, which is that the Black Stars is a cash cow. So, in my experience...
Certainly not for the state.
So I'm coming to explain.
Because for the state, it's a dog.
Let me explain to you. A number of people,
it's a dog.
A number of people around the team. So when there is time for an AFCON or a World Cup, that is when your constituency executives of the political parties, that is when your members of parliament of the political parties get to reward the people who toiled for them to come to power. So when you see the list of names that have been drawn up that are going to be on the state's list, right, on that chartered flight to the Qatar World Cup, Cameroon 2019 or 2021, you will find out
Brazil 2014.
You will find out that there is a huge chunk of people there who the ministry cannot explain. Now, I've been on that list before. 2022 World Cup, I was part of that. Journalists have been on that list. Under no circumstance will I agree or support the idea to fund any journalist to any tournaments.
It shouldn't be happening.
It shouldn't be happening. But we do this to legitimize the other things we cannot justify.
Of course.
Yes. So they'll put a journalist list there and then call Fentio Tahiru. They'll call Muftao. So from Media House A, Media House B, put them on that list. But also...
So that when you start to speak up, then they
pull up that list. Yes. But also, we have party foot soldiers disguised as football fans. who will be on that list for the country.
So you're saying that the Black Stars has become a reward scheme?
It is a reward scheme.
Tournaments, for example, have become a reward scheme for ruling parties to reward not just...
Before the AFCON started,
yeah,
Abraham Boakye,
one-man supporter.
He went on rampage. He called the sports minister a boy. Why? Because his bread was being taken away from him. What's his bread? The gig of getting the supporters to go and support the country.
Being the one to organize the support.
Yes, it is now a business. Someone gets that contract, goes to government, gets the mandate, and now determines who is on that list. Sometimes there have been allegations of how that list is drawn up and the determination of which members of which supporter groups will join.
There was a big fight even in Abidjan where the fans had to address a press conference and address Abraham Boakye. So even the division among the fans, fighting over who goes, and has become so stark,
a big problem.
Simply because now they're not just only fans that go there anymore.
There are, as I have said, party foot soldiers who are sent there in the guise of supporters. And this is a big problem because if you look at the budget for 2023, this very AFCON, I can tell you that a minimum of $600,000 was committed to just taking care of football fans.
That's right. That is true. And for me, I think ultimately, this is it. Nobody has an issue with spending money on the Black Stars. And for me, I don't subscribe to the whole profit and loss argument when it comes to the Black Stars. For example, somebody says, why budget 8.5 million for a competition that only gives the winner 7 million? I think tournaments are not necessarily a profit and loss venture. And that is a fact. And nobody can convince me otherwise, because the kind of social capital that winning competitions gives a country is far more than the price.
You can't put a value on that.
It's way...
But the concerns people, including myself, have raised is that sometimes some of the expenditure cannot be justified.
That's what I'm saying. So I was coming to that.
Yeah.
That I don't subscribe to the argument that why budget more than how much you're getting from the tournament. There were times when the AFCON didn't even pay money. In fact, even in recent AFCONs, the AFCON prize money was only increased in the last 2 editions. Before that, the AFCON prize money was hovering around 1.5 million, 2.5 million. You cannot successfully organize or participate in an AFCON with that amount of money. It simply is not possible. But countries were happy to participate. They were happy to play in that competition. When you host an AFCON, like we did in 2008, the idea was not that we were going to make profit. We invested a lot of money into sports infrastructure, into transportation, to a lot of things to host the competition. We didn't necessarily reap the results in that very competition. I don't think we made the money back in that very competition. It's a long-term investment, and those things will stay in the country. The same thing to do with the Black Stars. I think globally, when Ghana is being discussed in conversations, certainly top 3, I would tell you that the Black Stars would be a top 3 identifier when it comes to Ghana. So that alone is a marketing tool. So I can understand why competitions and the desperation for the Black Stars to do well it's at the top of the minds of many political leaders. However, you have to read between the lines and see that throwing money, and that's my issue, throwing money at the Black Stars is not necessarily a guarantee for success. And we've seen it over and over again where it has failed spectacularly, and yet we keep doing it. For me, that is the biggest disappointment, because a lot, like Achu said, a lot of that expenditure is absolutely unnecessary. And yet every year we bloat it and we use it as a conduit. It's now definitely becomes a conduit for people to undertake all kinds of nefarious activities. Because certainly, if it is just about benefiting solely the organization of the competition and our participation, it cannot cost that much. Because when you go for an AFCON, you already know that CAF is paying for those hotels, CAF is paying for all your internal transportation, they're paying for all of your feeding. You may decide that let's take our own cook. That will come at your own cost, but you're feeding maybe 50 people. That's not millions of dollars. So we need to rethink. And for me, that is my biggest disappointment, that we've done the same thing over and over again, and clearly it's not working, and yet we keep doing it because there are people with vested interest in the financial outcome and even the kind of things they can use the tournament to do, reward people maybe in exchange for votes in the future. It's not become clear because when it comes to sports development, there's so many other things that we are completely neglecting. That is my biggest disappointment. Because now it also appears it is difficult for me to see this beyond just patriarchy. Men just being men. Because the Black Stars are not the only national team that we have. We also have the women's national team, all of which are owed bonuses. We owe Black Queens bonuses. We owe Black Princesses bonuses. And their bonuses are even nothing to write home about. We went to the AFCON and gave each player $20,000 as appearance fee. Black Queens players are owed bonuses, winning bonuses for 3 rounds of qualifying matches that amount to $7,500 US. We say we don't have money to pay them. And we've been owing them long before we even qualified for the AFCON and found money to pay these Black Stars players. Why are we not paying the women? That's my disappointment. What are we doing then? There's only one thing that explains this, because the money is there clearly. And like you said, it's not coming from the ministry's budget, because 80% of the ministry's budget already goes into paying their salaries and compensation. So all the Black Stars money is coming from the consolidated fund. So we know where the money is. And that is directly from our taxes. So why aren't you getting some of that and paying the women what is due them? Is it because they are women? I believe so. Because surely their compatriots are the Black Stars and you're paying them.
Look,
you're finding money to pay them. Why can't you find money to pay the women?
That would be my point of departure. I don't necessarily think it's a matter of patriarchy, but
why do you think so?
The Black Stars have a negotiation chip that blows everyone else out of the water.
Why do you think that there is a global move for equal pay? Why do you think that is?
There is that, but we cannot...
There is that because people simply think...
It is born out of the realization that the women's game has not been properly supported.
So that's why is that?
Because there is not a lot of value in there.
Why?
We have not created the value.
Whose job is it? Men.
The growth of the men's game happened organically. The women's game was something that we had to make a deliberate effort to grow.
How do you grow a product?
By
investing.
Yes.
Have you invested in the women's game?
Let's talk.
So that's my point.
Let's talk solutions now. Look, going forward, we do realize that 80% of, probably more, because the 80% we're talking about was probably 5 or 6 years ago. And over time, the ministry's portfolio has grown bigger. The NSA's portfolio has grown bigger. There is the youth in sports that we don't know where the people are, but government still pays them at the end of the month. There is the youth resources and
it's grown bigger, okay.
It's grown bigger. It is important that we find ways of funding our sports. Let's move the conversation and all of these talk shops about the funding components of the sports bill, the sports fund. And we have grown tired of listening to the big Englishes and all of these nice concepts, nice ideas from the Parliament's Select Committee on Youth Sports. So you're saying that
we need to stop taking money from the consolidated fund?
We need to, because it is not...
I agree.
Or
any sports at all.
Because the Black Stars is the only entity that the finance ministry will say, okay, we'll pay up. When you take athletics there, they won't mind you. When you take Black Queens there, they won't mind you. When you take badminton, when you take boxing, they won't mind you. So if we want to develop sports, and we're not only paying lip service, put our energy, our resources, and for once, be disciplined and committed to actually fine-tuning this whole sports fund that we talk about and ensuring that we move forward and actually start, at least roll out the plan that you have and then see whether or not it is practical. If it works, you improve it. If it doesn't, you look at other ways of generating revenue. Because look, we are about to host the African Games. People don't realize the seriousness of this. Our national teams are preparing for the games, and the country says we don't have $50,000 to spend. Yeah, it is crazy. And we've shoved them up, and we're all acting as if we have set targets for them that they have to finish in the top 5 in the medal table. And we're all acting as if it is normal. It is not. Yeah, it is crazy. It is a product of sheer incompetence. And they only just started
camp
a month ago.
Meanwhile, we got the rights to host these games since 2018. What is wrong with us? Anyway, let's move the conversation on. AFCON yesterday, crazy games. Let's go through the first match that happened. Cape Verde beat Mauritania by 1-0 late on in that match. Of course, these are scenes from the CoteD'voire game after they won. Watch party all around. CoteD'voire were not expected to win this match. They were big underdogs in this game. Can we just roll the highlights first of all, please, and then see how the game unfolded before we cross over to the line to speak to somebody else that was there and witnessed it all unfold. Actually, this was a game that was, for me, it was down to desire.
Yeah.
CoteD'voire were not giving any chance. In fact, you didn't give them any chance whatsoever. You said they slumbered their way through to the knockout phase. And you didn't think that they were suddenly going to wake up in the knockout rounds. They did wake up in the knockout rounds. And what a performance.
It was. I think the part that surprised me was how tactically sound they looked. Because for a team that had its manager fired, 4 days before this fixture, you expected the team. And all through the tournaments, the Ivorians have hardly looked tactically well drilled. Yes, they've had the quality. They went through the motions in that game versus Guinea-Bissau. But beyond that, they looked completely disfigured. They did not look very well balanced in the 2 games against Nigeria and then Equatorial Guinea. And so it was not out of place for us to suggest that, look, the Senegalese, who, by the way, as we explained yesterday, had gone the last 15 of the last 21 matches without losing and keeping clean sheets in that many games. What surprised me about the Ivorians yesterday was the fact that it wasn't all just heart. It wasn't all just application and desire. They found a way to isolate and open up Lamine Camara. And that was the one thing that I said I would want to see if they can pull it off. So yes, there was Lamine Camara, Papa Gueye, Idrissa Gueye in that midfield for them. By the sheer grit, they managed to isolate them. But even more importantly, they took care of the risk of counter breaks. So yes, they lost possession.
Which they were very vulnerable to.
They were vulnerable to, but they managed it well because every time Sadio Mane and then Ismail Assar and the rest of the Senegalese front players received possession, they were either isolated or they received in areas where you had enough Ivorians around them to neutralize any combination that they could attempt. So sometimes you would see Mane trying to combine goal shots, go along with his team. It didn't work. Any mix that he tried, they would go through the middle. That did not work. But I love the fact that the most consistent theme of this tournament, which is if you're going to win any game, you have to be worth the money. You have to
work for it.
You have to work for it. We haven't seen a match where you could say that the team that won did not deserve it. And yesterday, Senegal did not deserve to gain it.
And big credit to Emas Faye for that decision to field Jean-Michel Seri, because that was he's a slightly different player from Kessie. Kessie would take more risk, bomb forward. He just sat deep and ensured that he provided enough protection. And he was the key to stopping those counter-attacks that you spoke about, that they were vulnerable to in the past, especially.
Seko Fofana.
Yes.
My word.
Oh, my goodness. What a game he had.
That's how you drag your team out of...
Oh, goodness me. He was up for it. Like, he was ready from minute 1. And another man who was ready from minute 1 all the way to the end is John Wafo, a Ghanaian football businessman who lives in Abidjan. He's been having an absolute blast. And yesterday, he posted a video of a sea of orange flooding the streets of Abidjan after the match, and John said he was headed over for the after party. How was the after party, John? You seem like first of all, it's good to see that you're still alive.
Yes, I'm well alive and kicking.
Absolutely. Talk to me about it. First of all, the expectations of the Ivorians yesterday. Surely we were not the only ones that thought that they had no chance against Senegal. The Ivorians themselves, I'm not sure, how much did they believe that they could actually win this match?
So funny enough, they have turned the whole performance, the 4-0, into a bit of a meme or a joke, saying that it's Ivory Coast that's hosting the AFCON, so they can decide whether or not they want to win, whether or not they want to lose, whether or not they want to give the trophy to someone else, or whether or not they want to sack all the countries for them to just play alone. So the expectations weren't very high. But there was a bit of nervousness at the beginning of the match, especially after they conceded that first goal in the early part of the match. It seemed like everyone in the grounds were afraid that, it would be a repeat of history and get a drubbing. But early enough, the Ivorian team took charge of possession and really dominated the game. Even if you look at the expected goals, they have an expected goals of 1.21 compared to Senegal's expected goals of only 1.0. So, and if you even look at the ball possession, they were just a little bit under 60%, so they were 57%. Whereas Senegal seemed content to just sit back and try to hit the Ivorian team on the counter. But the scenes after the game were just electric. In Yamoussoukro, people were out, jubilant, blowing the whistle, jumping around, dancing, playing Coup de Marteau by Tamsir, that song that has gone viral. It was just fantastic times last night.
And I saw that video that you posted on Twitter of just a sea of, I think we played it a few minutes earlier, a sea of orange just pouring down the street of Abidjan. At the moment, though, talk to me about two things. First of all, Emas Faye, the interim manager that they brought in charge, what do you know about him? Tell us a bit, because it seems like a lot of us don't know much about him. Is he known in Abidjan, like in CoteD'Ivoire? What is his pedigree like? Because yesterday, there's a lot of that victory that was down to him. His starting lineup was on point. His changes were good as well. And this was somebody who, in fact, just a week ago, didn't even know he had the job.
Yeah, and it's funny because I think that they announced to him that he got the job on the day of his 40th birthday. So Emas Faye is actually quite well known as a player, but less so known as a coach. So he was a player that started his career in France in Nantes and did the works, played for the Ivorian national team. And more recently, he was the head coach for the under-23 Ivory Coast team, which, he didn't do really well with. So people didn't really have high expectations for him. But he proved them wrong, and now all people are talking about is the fact that, he was able to prove everyone wrong and basically grab the game by the scruff of the neck by making the right changes, by bringing in the right people, by also giving more vim or more courage to two players who had played quite poorly in the 4-0 loss. If you think about Franck Kessié, he had been quite poor in that game, and he now turns up, scores the penalty, and then scores the winning penalty at the end to send the team to the next stage. And then Nicolas Pepe as well had been quite poor, wasteful in front of the goal, but he's the one who ends up getting that penalty that was then converted by Kessié. And then you also look at who he brought on. If you look at Sébastien Haller, when he came in, it basically changed the complexion of the game. His hold-up play was great. He was able to bring in the runners like Simon Andigra that he brought in as well. And so overall, he got his tactics on point. And I think he also was good in re-motivating the players. There was a sense of pride. There was a sense of, even if at the end of the day, maybe they end up losing, at least they would have given their all. So that's something that maybe some other teams can also take note of and implement also in their team.
That last statement sounds a bit too familiar. Something that other teams can look at and obviously take a bit of pride in. And you mentioned yesterday was basically a masterclass on how to win your fans back, because we saw the behavior of the Ivorian fans after that 4-0 drubbing at the hands of Equatorial Guinea. It's when it appeared to the fans that they were not going to the knockout stages, and then somehow they miraculously did it. Now they'll be thinking, God must have put them through for a reason. What is that feeling like now ahead of the other knockout games? Because certainly now they'll play the winner of Burkina Faso and Mali. Is there a real sense that maybe this is it? Destiny is in our own hands now.
So funnily enough, after that 4-0 loss, the president, Ouattara, came out and said that to be discouraged is not something that's Ivorian. So he was trying to rally the troops to ensure that not only the fans, but also the players don't be discouraged and decide to push on and do their best. So right now there's a sense that whoever they're able to meet later on won't be as good or as big of a challenge as Senegal was. So if they were able to beat Senegal, there's a sense that any other team they'll be able to beat as well. So, but in terms of the reconnection with the fans, one thing that I really enjoyed is the fact that after the game, almost all the players came and went around the stadium and really thanked the fans. And even the Senegalese players did the same thing. I was in the middle of enemy territory. I was with the Senegalese COP, they were so passionate. They were dancing. They were, clapping and supporting the team for the entirety of the whole match. The Senegalese team came. Mane was there, just thanking the COP, thanking their fans for all the support that they had. And the same thing happened with the Ivorian team, where they went really literally around the whole stadium, clapping, enjoying. And even after Kessie's goal, they did the same thing. They run towards the fans. They celebrated with the fans. So it's a little bit of a reunion between the fans and the players, although I think really it was just a smaller section of the fans that were really, really annoyed and that caused some of the trouble after that 4-0 loss. After that loss, funny enough, in the streets of Abidjan, people were running around and saying, okay, we didn't win, but we don't care. So there was still a sense of we're still behind our team. Let's see what's going to happen. And, the results is there for all of us to see.
Amazing, amazing. And that performance yesterday is the best way to apologize. No amount of English on Instagram or on Twitter, it suffices for any kind of apology. That's how you apologize to your fans, okay? Going out there and performing as well as you did. John, thank you very much. We wish you the best of luck in the rest of the tournaments. We'll be coming back to you. And if CoteD'Ivoire do make the final, you see me there in Abidjan. Because in all orange, draped in orange, it's I'm Ivorian. But thank you very much, John. John Boafo.
Thanks for having me.
Football businessman, joining us all the way from Abidjan with live updates on what's happening there.
I love how you ended it.
Yes.
There is no better way to apologize than doing it on the pitch.
Show up.
Not these messages that are crafted for them.
Cape Verde yesterday, we thought that it was going to be a very straightforward game for them between themselves and Mauritania. Yeah. That was a very, very tough game for both sides. Really technical game as well. Yeah. But in the end,
that penalty, similar to
that penalty, and
similar
giving
to
away by the goalkeeper,
similar to the Senegalese penalty they conceded.
The one that Edouard Mendy gave away.
Yeah.
Were you surprised at how tight this game was?
No, I wasn't. But as I said on the show yesterday, I was confident that they were going to. Look, people may not realize it, but because they are not a sexy name on the continent, but this is the greatest Cape Verde team of all time. If you look at their performance in this tournament, before yesterday's game, they had scored 7 goals from 32 shots, which represents a conversion rate of 22%. Yeah. Now, that tally of 7 goals outstrips their combined tally of their 3 previous AFCON performances.
Wow.
From 2013, 2015, and then in 2021. So you're looking at a team that is improving game after game. And in one competition, they have outperformed every single metric that you can think of from all of their previous AFCONs.
And they have equaled their best ever run in the AFCON, which is a quarterfinal back in 2013.
That's what gives credibility to the idea that this is the best team they have produced.
All right. So anyone that comes up against Cape Verde Should be very well indeed. Karim is here to give us some perspective on the performance of some of those teams yesterday.
And some nuggets of wisdom.
Michael Jordan Karim.
Yes.
He's called Benin Messi. How are you?
Great.
All right, you've got something on the Senegal CoteD'Ivoire.
Yeah. So if you were the CoteD'Ivoire coach,
Okay.
and you were preparing with them after that devastating loss to Equatorial Guinea, what will you be telling them?
I'll tell them that don't grieve for anybody. I'll be telling them don't grieve for anybody.
It's a great message, but that is what life is about.
Yeah.
We don't get redos, but we get second chances.
We do.
That is what the America-based psychologist Jeffrey Fry says.
Okay.
What happened against Equatorial Guinea, if they were mulling over it and not preparing for this game, they wouldn't have been able to do anything in it. But God gave them a second chance, as almost every human being gets, and they grabbed it with both hands. Yeah. So let's look at the stats from the game and what it says about the performance of Cote d'Ivoire. Looking at possession, Senegal had 43% of possession. Then Cote d'Ivoire had 57%. If you see this, you will see that, something surprising, but not surprising. Throughout the tournament, Cote d'Ivoire is the second team with the most average possession in the tournament.
Who is the first?
The first is Algeria, and they are home and dry.
Wow. So turning possession into wins is not easy.
It's not easy. And Senegal, as you see them, this is their worst possession in the tournament. But they are not specifically, it is not their best weapon at this tournament. The game that they've not dominated possession in 3 of the 4 games they've played at this tournament.
Wow.
It's just the first, they had about 69% of possession against, is it Guinea or Guinea-Bissau? Guinea. For 69% of possession in that game. And apart from that, they've been dominated. And this is their worst in the competition. And they've lost. Then expected goals. Again, for the first time in this tournament, they've not exceeded the 1.0 mark of expected goals. So it means that they were expected to just score 1 goal in this game from 13 total shots they've attempted, with just 4 of them being on target. So it means that all the 13 shots, they've not created really good opportunities for them to be considered big chances. And this is Cote d'Ivoire's second highest in the competition in terms of expected goals. Then big chances. For the first time again, they've not created a big chance in the game. It means that Cote d'Ivoire have basically found a way of cutting them out.
That's what I choose earlier. They shackled them.
Yes, for the first time in the tournament, and Kusunu, he plays for Bayer Leverkusen. He didn't start, but the new manager paired him with Ndika, and it was solid, with Series sitting in front of them and cutting out the balls coming in. Total shots have explained. Senegal had 13, then Cote d'Ivoire 8, but Cote d'Ivoire made a very good use of DS in the tournament. Then, if you are looking at touches in opposition box, we'll look at a graph that talks about how many the goals Senegal have scored and in which areas they've come from. This is it. For the 8 goals they've scored before this game, 7 of them have come inside the box. And they've played 120 minutes, and they've got only 23 touches inside the box. And look at how small those boxes are. These ones they are very small. It means that if they were given that chance, they were clinical enough to convert them. But it means that Cote d'Ivoire were really tight in their back.
So the bigger
the circle, that's how big the chance is.
The better the chance.
Yes.
Right. I'm guessing this is Lamine Kamara's goal.
Yes, that's it. The only goal they've scored outside of the box. The rest coming inside. So
the moment Cote d'Ivoire limited their touches
inside the box,
they limited their ability
to score,
to create a lot of
meaningful chances.
That is interesting.
Yeah, let's move it on to this one. This is the momentum. Attacking momentum. It just means that throughout the game, Senegal had a very good start to it and scored deservedly. Yes. That's around the first 12 minutes. Apart from that, Cote d'Ivoire took over and really pressed. If you have players like Seri Fofana, who is exerting a lot of energy. For about 4 of the Senegal Cote d'Ivoire players completed the most passes in that game. Wow. So if you are arranging who has the most...
all the top passes,
yes,
top 4 are
the 2 centre-backs, Ndika, Kusunu, Seri, before you be going to 4, another Cote d'Ivoire player before you go to Senegal. It means that Cote d'Ivoire, this is their momentum map. That is the graph in yellow, and that is Senegal's in blue, as you say. So it means that we are seeing the momentum more yellow, and it is
and higher yellow.
Yes, bars. If it is high, it means that there's more pressure, or they have more attacking momentum of creating a goal or creating a chance to score a goal. Look at it, throughout the first half and even in the second half, they controlled most of the game until Senegal conceded the equalizer, and we're now stepping up.
This was even in extra time.
Yes, and they were now, because of the substitutions they've made, and they've now gotten some fresh energy and coming into, but it didn't really help them to get a winner and lost in the penalties.
Very interesting.
Now I want to look at Nicolas Pepe.
Okay.
If you ask me who my man of the match in that game, basically he decided everything.
Pepe?
Yes.
He's been largely criticized.
What
did he do special?
He was on the pitch for 55 minutes.
Okay.
And before this game, of all players in the tournament, only 6 of them touched the ball more times in the opposition box than him. And he's played just 170 minutes. 170 minutes, and he's touching the ball 16 times. And he's the 6th best. If he was starting, it means that when he touches the ball in the opposition box, it's danger. And when he got inside the game, the first one, the very long ball that he first touched, he went for the volley, and Mendy made a really good save. And the second one was what he won the penalty. We know how good he is.
So is that why you gave him an assist? This is not
this
is not FPL. Because in FPL, penalty counts as an assist.
Yeah, that's
but in real football, like in open play, penalty doesn't count as
it's supposed to be penalty one, not
so he
an
won,
assist.
So that should be penalty
one.
Okay.
So
that's fair enough.
Yes. And looking at how much the fighting spirit he brought into the game, fouls won, he's won 2 fouls in that game. I think there's a mix-up. He was
fouled 6 times.
No, there's a mix-up in this. There's a mix-up in this. So he won 2 fouls, 1 being the penalty. And how much he affected the game, it is what really stands out for me. Immediately, the balls he's touching, he's really quick with his feet. And when he's going straight direct at you, it's very difficult to stop. And Mendy got his share of it. Trying to stop him, and committed the penalty.
All right, thank you, Karim. Thank you very much, Karim, for that. Let's look at fixtures for today. 2 matches, South Africa against Morocco, Mali against Burkina Faso. The winner of this Mali versus Burkina Faso match will face CoteD'Ivoire. Ashu?
There are a few players on my mind. The great...
We don't have a lot of time.
Yeah,
so
the great Burkina Wall of China.
Yes.
I think they will make the difference.
Okay.
Gustavo Sangare and his midfield partner, and of course, if you have Issy Fudayo and then the big man at Bayer Leverkusen behind them, they've got an insurance that I don't believe that the Malians have got.
So you think who will win?
I think Burkina Faso will make this one. The second game,
Morocco. So you think Burkina will win?
Yes.
Morocco and South Africa. On paper, looks a bit straightforward.
I'll go against the grain and go for South Africa.
Let's see. If South Africa wins this match,
we might as well disappear from the field.
Oh, yes.
Nigeria have qualified.
Oh, my brother.
South Africa has
well. Nah, bro. Oh, nah. So, Morocco, South Africa.
Yeah.
Certainly, Morocco. They're coming up a team that also loves to play football. That really loves to play football. So it will be interesting to see. South Africa will possess. I feel like South Africa might just play into the hands of Morocco. Because Morocco are very used to sitting deep, being compact against teams that like to dominate possession so they can catch them on the counter.
If that happens, Morocco wins, hands down. It will be naive of
And that is the thing. It's in South Africa's DNA. They would come and outplay you.
I'm giving them the benefits of the doubt because...
I think Bruce would tell them,
in the last 2 matches that they have played, they've not exactly been too expansive. Against Namibia, there was a temptation to impose themselves on that match, but they
needed it.
Yes, they were calm and they waited for their moment. If they can do that against Morocco, I don't see why they can't beat them.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. That's Victor Achitomoklo joining me here. That's our show for today. AFCON Today live on Joy 99.7 FM, as well as on the Joy Prime TV channel, which is live on, of course, DSTV. My name is Fentu, Tahir Fentu. The show is proudly sponsored by MTN. MTN everywhere you go. We are back again tomorrow. We're back again tomorrow at the same time, 1 p.m. with another episode of AFCON.